The battle for Bakhmut remains unclear as Ukraine continues to counter Russian claims of taking more territory in the area.
An investigation is underway to identify 4 alleged smugglers. Their boat carrying some 200 migrants sunk off Italy's coast, killing at least 59.
The battle for Bakhmut remains unclear as Ukraine continues to counter Russian claims of taking more territory in the area. Footage released by a Russian state news agency, however, reveals how the longest battle of the Russia-Ukraine war has turned the city into a ghost town. It's clear the humanitarian situation is extremely difficult. Of the pre-war population of 80,000, 5,000 residents have refused or been unable to evacuate. In a first, President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed Saudi Arabia's foreign minister, Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, to Kyiv. It was the first ever official visit to Ukraine by a Saudi official. The minister brought with him a pledge of providing the war-torn country with €379 million in humanitarian aid.
Energy security.
Meanwhile, Ukraine has released drone footage purporting to show Russian tanks being blown up by mines or stopped by Ukrainian strikes as they try and approach the Donetsk city of Vuhledar, which has become the latest city caught up in the grinding war of attrition with Russian forces.
Calls for peace, accompanied by rallies demanding the end of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, were seen across Europe over the weekend as the conflict passed its one-year mark. In Rome, several hundred Ukrainians gathered, many draped in the national flag, calling for an end to the killing and the swift return of peace.
Ucraina non è mai, non è loro e mai sarà, perché gli ucraini, anche se doveste congelarli lì vivi, appena potranno fare qualcosa si ribelleranno. Adesso anche i bambini sanno che chi bombarda non è America, ma sono i russi che bombardano.
Più forte che ci sta nel nostro cuore è resistenza ucraina, perché siamo popolo pacifista e vogliamo essere liberi, è la nostra propria idea di libertà, perché combattiamo, se qualcuno non sa, noi combattiamo da 400 anni contro la Russia, proprio come aggressore.
There were similar scenes in Madrid, as crowds gathered for an event organised by Ukrainian associations and schools in the Spanish capital. Protesters waving flags and banners marched from the Plaza de Colón for singing, dancing and speeches honouring the Ukrainian military defending their homeland. Over the weekend, similar rallies and marches were held in Berlin, Paris, London, Brussels and other European cities.
Italy's Coast Guard is still searching for dozens of missing people after a boat carrying hundreds of migrants sunk off the country's coast, killing at least 59, including 12 children. Around 80 people have been found alive, but officials fear the death toll could top 100, since some survivors have indicated the boat had at least 200 people on board. One 12-year-old boy lost his entire family in the shipwreck, including his 4 siblings. An investigation is underway to identify 4 people who allegedly organized the tragic crossing from Turkey.
Nell'occasione è stato individuato anche un presunto facilitatore, presunto scafista insieme alla pattuglia dei carabinieri e al momento sono in corso delle attività di indagine finalizzate ad accertarne la responsabilità in capo a questo e in capo anche ad altri 3 presunti facilitatori sempre di nazionalità turca che al momento sono in fuga e le ricerche sono in corso.
The shipwreck comes just days after the Italian parliament adopted controversial new rules, restricting rescue efforts. The new law forces humanitarian ships to carry out only one rescue at a time. The move, critics say, will increase the number of people killed while trying to cross the Mediterranean. According to monitoring groups, more than 20,000 people have died or gone missing at sea in the Mediterranean since 2014.
Slowly but surely getting a deal done. That's the message from the Irish Taoiseach on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Speaking in Galway, Leo Varadkar said that intense talks between Dublin, Belfast and London and Brussels were going well.
I think the talks on reforming the protocol are inching towards a conclusion. Certainly the deal isn't done yet, but I do think we are inching towards a conclusion, and I really want to thank the UK government, the European Commission and the Northern Ireland parties for the level of engagement that they've done in recent months to get us to this point, and would just encourage everyone to go the extra mile to come to an agreement, because the benefits are huge.
Talks in mid-February between Northern Ireland's parties and the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak appear to end positively. All going well, an agreement on the post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland could be settled this week.
That will be the case, and then it's a matter for
Protesters descended on Mexico City on Sunday, urging the government, "Don't touch my vote," amid controversial electoral law reforms that critics say would threaten democracy. Sporting the white and pink of Mexico's National Electoral Institute, demonstrators mobilised en masse against plans which, if signed into law, would cut salaries, funding for local election offices, and training for those who operate and oversee polling stations. Mexico's president has dismissed the criticism as elitist and says more should be spent on the poor.
There's been reprisal protests and fire setting in Gaza and the West Bank. Late Sunday night, Palestinian youths burnt tyres and threw stun grenades during a protest near the Israel-Gaza border. Hours earlier, a large group of Israeli settlers went on the rampage in the West Bank village of Hawara, where a Palestinian gunman had shot dead 2 Israelis. At least 15 houses and a number of vehicles were burnt. Several families had to be evacuated from their homes.
Iran's currency, the rial, has hit a new record low on Sunday. A drop analysts say is down to the effects of nationwide anti-government protests and the breakdown of the 2015 nuclear deal. For the first time, it is now valued at 600,000 rials to the dollar. People in large numbers have been seen queuing at exchange offices to buy the American currency, as many have seen their life savings plunge. Inflation reached 53.4% in January, up from 41.4% 2 years ago.
It started with energy, but a cost of living crisis has now spread to all sectors and all countries across Europe. The problem has many components, but the one that really concerns political leaders and affects households the most is food price inflation. In February, gas prices in Europe fell to their lowest level in almost 18 months. However, food prices are continuing their upward trend.
These lower energy prices that we have right now, they need to translate into lower cost of food production in order for us to see the price. For example, the prices that we're seeing at the supermarkets today, they reflect on energy prices 6 months ago when the food was produced. We believe that we'll only see a decline in food prices in about 6 months or so if energy prices stabilize.
In January, food prices across the European Union rose by an average of 18.4% compared to a year ago. Hungary suffered the most at 48.2%, followed by Lithuania at 32%. The lowest was Sweden at 5.8% and Cyprus at 10.3%.
We think consumer confidence will definitely improve towards the end of 2023. But it's going to take much longer to resolve the cost of living crisis.
The World Economic Forum's 2023 risk report found that the cost of living crisis is the most serious threat to the global community.
Jacques-Henri Lartigue, one of the greatest photographers of the 20th century, is best known for his black and white pictures. The Canal Foundation in Milan is presenting a rare exhibition of his work in colour, particularly from the Trente Glorieuses and the happy moments he immortalised. Colour is the best way to capture the charm and poetry of life, said Lartigue. Maurits Cornelis Escher is one of the most unusual artists of the 20th century, born 125 years ago in The Hague, in the Netherlands. His city pays homage to him through an exhibition of his main works. Entitled Escher, Otherworld, the exhibition of the Kunstmuseum combines works by the Dutch master with architectural installations that bring Escher's strange world to life. A short walk from the Thames in the heart of London, the Hayway Gallery is completely transformed by the installations and sculptures of Mike Nelson. These are large-scale works, many of which are being shown here for the first time since their original creation. All of them are constructed from recycled materials, from junk shops to flea markets.
The French bounced back from their loss to Ireland with a hard-fought win over Scotland in the Six Nations on Sunday. It was a tense affair at the Stade de France as both sides suffered red cards in the first 10 minutes, and despite a solid second-half performance from the visitors, Gaël Ficou eventually powered over to seal a bonus points win and give the home crowd something to cheer about. Fabien Galtier's men prevailed 30-21, a good result according to François Cros, who also said Les Bleus had to dig deep during the game, even more so after their defensive performance in Ireland on day 2. And Andy Farrell's players kept their composure to win in Rome on Saturday to continue their unbeaten run. Elsewhere, England outclassed Wales 20-10 in Cardiff and are now 5 points behind Ireland, who play Scotland on the 12th of March.